Hey, everyone. I'm Austin and I'm 40 years old. My ex-wife had been cheating on me steadily and I had absolutely no idea until I found out. This happened a very long time ago, but I guess it's the right time to share it. For the sake of this video, I'm going to call my ex-wife, Esther. Esther and I grew up in the same neighborhood and we saw each other a lot as kids. I was 6 years old when she was born, and by the time she had grown to become a teenager, I was already set to leave for college. By the time I was back from college and I returned home, Esther was already a grown-ass teenager, and I must confess, I was attracted to her. Her body was well developed and she took a lovely shape. She was almost done with high school and she had a bunch of friends she always hung out with. Though I liked her, I didn't really get the chance to talk to her or tell her how I felt. So we just remained people who lived in the same neighborhood and would often talk to each other whenever we bumped into each other. After college, I moved out of town to stay on my own. I figured it was better to stay on my own than to pay rent in my parents' house, and that was how I lost communication with Esther. A few years later, one weekend, I was at home and I got a call from my mom asking me if I had a friend Esther could come and crash with for a few days until she got accommodation in school. It turned out she applied to the same college and was given admission to study linguistics. I told my mom I could call a couple of friends and ask on her behalf. Luckily, I was able to find someone, so Esther came over, and after she sorted out her accommodation issues, we became close friends. On the other hand, she became close to Lucy, the friend of mine who agreed to let her stay for a couple of days. I was comfortable with their relationship because Lucy was way older than Esther, and since she just moved into town, it'd be advisable for her to have a couple of new friends. To cut the long story short, since she had been my longtime crush, I loved and I really wanted to be with her, so I asked her to be my girlfriend, and she said yes. Being that Lucy was Esther's best friend, the three of us became inseparable. We were always together and went on vacations together. Though Lucy had been in series of relationships, but they never really ended well, so whenever she needed a shoulder to cry on, we were always there for her. After college, Esther got a job and I did as well, so we were both comfortable. Lucy had a great job too. She was an editor in a publishing company, so her job allowed her to work from home whenever she wanted to. My job was a 9-5, and on some days, I could stay extra hours to earn more, while Esther worked 3 days a week on site and 2 days from home, excluding weekends. This allowed her to spend more time with Lucy than me. 2 years later, I asked Esther to marry me, and she agreed to. We went back to have a wedding at our hometown, and Lucy joined us. She was even Esther's maid of honor. After the wedding, we returned home and continued with our normal lives. Lucy eventually got married too, but she divorced her husband after 2 years and started to date a man whom we'll be calling Andrew. When Lucy met Andrew, we all believed she would spend forever with him, but things turned out differently. They did not last for long because Andrew went to jail for domestic violence. He'd beaten up Lucy to the point we could not recognize her, but Lucy refused to say why. I tried to make Esther talk to Lucy, but Esther's response was she's better off not saying anything now. What's most important is for her to get better and back on her feet. So I just dropped it and focused on helping Lucy get better. She moved over to our apartment so Esther could nurse her back to health, and I supported this. Esther and I did not have any kids. We were not ready yet, and I still think not having any kids helped me in healing faster after I found out what you'll be finding out next. Some months after, Lucy recovered. Her publishing organization asked her to go for a seminar for editors, and since she was one of the best editors and they could not afford for her to miss the seminar, they got her 2 tickets. One for her and one for her plus. One, someone who would look after her, or at least accompany her, since she wasn't really in good shape. When Lucy came to break the news to us at home, we were so excited for her, and it was even my idea that she took Esther with her. The seminar would only last for a week, and taking Esther for a week was totally fine by me. Her organization had already made arrangements for accommodation and feeding, and since they were both females, they could share a room. Esther was okay with the decision, so she packed her bag and helped Lucy in packing hers too. The two ladies traveled, and I was left at home alone. I must admit, it was a very long and cold 1 week, but it was also the week that opened my eyes to a lot of things that had been wrong. By the time Esther left, the house was a mess, and I knew it'd be unfair for her to come back and clean up my mess, especially when it was all my fault. I think I started with the kitchen, and there was this set of chinawares my mother gave to me. It was given to her by her father, so it was more like a kitchen family heirloom. I thought about cleaning it and putting it back in the shelf, but everything changed when I saw a pack of female condoms tied in black nylon in one of the pots. I knew that had just been put in there, because the first time I put the wares in the shelf, I cleaned them myself, and there was nothing in it. When I saw this, a lot of thoughts ran through my head. I knew Esther was not going to get pregnant, even if we had sex without protection, because she was doing family planning, so the female condoms did not make any sense. It was even more suspicious that she hid it in the kitchen, in a place that would take me forever to find. I wanted to call her right away and ask questions, but it didn't seem like the right thing to do. All I could think of was Esther was having sex, but with someone else. It was the only explanation for the female condoms. I was broken and scared. I hoped I was wrong, but I was pushed to keep searching the house. I went through her stuff, and I found some sex toys buried in her clothes. She had a vibrator, the kind of dildo you tied around the waist, and she had cuffs. My heart sank as I held these stuff. At that point, I didn't not even know what to think or say. All I knew was that I'd be getting answers. I took pictures of the things I had seen, and I put them back in their old positions. Before I found all of these stuff, we spoke on phone almost every morning and evenings. We chatted too, but after I found out, our communication reduced. It was pretty obvious to her, and I had to lie that I wasn't feeling well. She returned that weekend with Lucy, and they both looked so happy. According to them, the conference was not really it, but they had a lot of fun together, and she was able to bring Lucy back to her old self. I didn't notice anything off about the both of them. Not until the next day, we were all about to having breakfast, and Esther was standing close to the dining table. What happened was, Lucy walked by, squeezed her left arse, and smacked it. When I noticed something was off, Esther pretended she didn't know what was going on. To me, that was not just some silly mistake or some unconscious act. It was the piece of the puzzle I had been missing. I pretended it was nothing too, but deep within me, it was eating me up. I really wanted to confront her about the things I had seen. We never used sex toys or cuffs, so it didn't make any sense for her to have them. These toys were not packed either. They had been used several times. And the thing with the kind of sex toys she had were the ones that required 2 people. To be honest, at that time, there was nothing I did not search for on Google concerning lesbians. I searched and searched, but there were no signs of what I had seen with Esther and Lucy. I was only suspecting them then, and I didn't really catch them in the act. All this while, my ex-wife had noticed there was something wrong with me, but I didn't a great job at hiding it. I didn't tell her about the things I had seen. We also did not have sex the whole while. I was intentional about that. I wanted her to be sex, starved so I could see if she'd run to Lucy, and it worked. About a week later, she told me she was having a night out with Lucy, but I suggested they did it at home, and I would go out to spend time with the boys, and I'd return around 11. The 2 ladies were happy about this, and it worked. Before this, I had cloned Esther's phone. This allowed me to see all of her conversations with anyone she spoke to, including Lucy. That evening, I returned from work around 5 p.m., stayed home till 7 p.m., and I went to hang out with some of my friends. Lucy was to come over by 8 p.m. I found out from their conversation that was the hardest moment of my marriage. They talked about making each other climax and enjoy their toys. Esther said it's a good thing Evan isn't home, so we could have fun wherever we want. I felt my throat go dry and my blood pours in my veins. I could not believe that Esther would choose to do that to me. It was one thing that she was cheating on me. It was another that she cheated on with a woman from their conversation. I followed it up till when Lucy arrived, and I knew I had to take action. The bar I was hanging out at was just around the corner, and it was literally a 5 minutes drive from my house. I went home immediately. I had my keys, so I just went straight into the house. I found them, both of them, on our matrimonial bed, with Lucy pounding Esther, with a dildo tied around her waist. They were so engrossed that they didn't see me standing at the door. I could not control the tears that rolled down my cheeks. It was at the moment I understand why Andrew did what he did. He must have caught Lucy cheating in him with a woman, and he hit her. The craziest part was that even if I was told Esther and Lucy were lesbian partners, I would never have believed it. The two ladies were best friends, and I couldn't believe they had been sleeping with each other for years, right under my nose. I was so mad that I threw them out of my house, naked. I didn't care what the neighbors had to say. I wasn't going to be a weak man who'd let my wife and her partner manipulate me. I threw out her stuff and locked the doors. That wasn't all. I knew she'd lie against me to her parents, and I was very prepared for that. I printed her conversation with Lucy. I made photocopies for each members of her family, and I drove back to our hometown. As expected, she was already there, and I didn't even waste my time with her. Even looking at her disgusted me. Her parents were disappointed. The expression on their faces was everything I wanted. She tried to beg me, but I was already out of the marriage. I wanted nothing to do with her anymore. I knew her parents would make living with them hell for her, and I wanted to cause her the same pain she caused me. The pain of disappointing someone who loved you, or someone who expected a lot from you. I wanted her to feel that. She tried to put the blame on Lucy, but I wasn't buying that. She was an adult, and she was responsible for the actions she did, not anybody else. Later on, we divorced, and we both went our separate ways. Lucy, on the other hand, traveled back to her country. The last post I saw on her Facebook, before I blocked her, was a picture of her with a younger girl whom she called her best friend. I hated her for ruining my life, but I figured it would be way better if I blocked her on all social media platforms and moved on with my life. I never heard from Esther again, and to be frank, I hope she burns in hell for all I care. She ruined me and my chances of falling in love again. Since then, it has been difficult to trust any woman. In fact, I trust my dog more. This was my cheating story, and it is one I can never forget.